Our first question tonight is from Tim Wright.
My question is for Peter Hitchens. You have described yourself as an observer and record keeper of the collapse of Western civilization. To what extent is your resignation to defeat a lament for the passing of a world where moral absolutes still existed, hierarchy and order was respected, and nuclear families were the cultural norm? Is it not desirable that we have moved out of a world of black and white into one of technicolor?
Wow. Peter Hitchens.
Well, the first summary of my opinions is absolutely right. But what that has to do with a world of black and white and a world of technicolor, I'm not quite sure. You seem to be suggesting that somehow a world in which people don't fulfill their obligations to their children, desert their marriages, don't keep to the laws, are increasingly selfish and follow their own desires and abandon all kinds of ideas of self-restraint and patience, is a better world than one where those things actually ruled. And I don't agree with you. The fact that the world is technicolor, and full of drugs and people who get drunk and people who abandon their husbands and wives, it doesn't seem to me to be an improvement. And it strikes me that it's time somebody said that actually this isn't necessarily a turn for the better. But in any case, when you're discussing all these changes in our lives, you can't return to the past. It's futile to even attempt to. What we're always doing, all the time, is discussing what we're going to do with the future. At the moment, we're very busily choosing the wrong future in which some of us and all of our children are going to live.
Hey, it's a good thing we didn't bring our champagne out here. We actually considered it. Yes.
Peter, you've obviously bemoaned the decline, the moral decline of Great Britain. I mean, is it the decline of Christian values that you're talking about primarily?
Well, Christianity more or less collapsed in Europe after 1914 and the First World War. And when it ceased to exist, all kinds of other things rushed in to take its place. But mostly what's rushed in to take its place is what I call selfism. The idea that we are all sovereign in our own bodies, that no one can tell us what to do with our own bodies, that everything that we do is okay, provided we think we aren't harming anybody else. Quite often the truth is that we are harming other people, but we're hiding it from ourselves.
But who gets to decide what's corrupt? So, you know, drinking, drugs, gay sex, I mean, sort of where do you draw the line? Well, what seems totally arbitrary.
Where do you draw the line? You draw the line fundamentally, as far as I'm concerned, around about the Sermon on the Mount and those instructions given to us. And I have absolutely no shame in saying that I believe that the Christian religion was the greatest possession which the human race had, which it's now, in large parts of the world, rather busily throwing away.
I'm a firm believer in do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I just think there's more doing unto that's possible in my philosophy than in yours.
Well, I know that.
I think
you do an awful lot of things unto other people and indeed to yourself.
Consent matters and harm matters.
That's your affair, but it's not the same question.
Consent matters and harm matters. If there's consent and no one is being harmed, it's no one's business what an individual chooses to do with his or her body.
Yes, but it's so essential to answer this. The people who say that they're not doing harm are almost invariably deceiving themselves. The people who divorce and say, oh, the children are happier as a result.
And the government should rush in to prevent people from being self-deceptive, if that's indeed what they're doing?
The teenager who takes drugs and becomes mentally ill and ruins his own life and that of his parents is doing harm to other people. But at the time they do these things, they say, no, my body is sovereign. I am a completely autonomous person. I don't harm anybody else. We lie to ourselves about this all the time. I lie to myself about it. You all lie to yourselves about it. You lie to yourself about it.
So what
we
about
know that we harm other people, but we harm
Let me go to Germaine Greer.
This is the system that Peter would like to defend. And this is the system that I have spent my life opposing.
No, it's your misrepresentation. It's your misrepresentation of the system I would like to defend. It isn't the system.
Could I characterize the system you would like to defend? It's the conservatism of ick. I don't like that, therefore you should not be allowed to do it. I don't approve of drinking. I don't use drugs myself. I don't suck dick myself. Therefore you should be legally prevented from doing those things.
Well,
that's radical. Yeah, that is not conservative.
And what's so brilliant about that? Because there are things I think that we see around us. that we do not...
Pretty brilliant.
There are things that we see around us that we do not like, and if we don't act to stop them, then we're guilty.
But I don't
of
like
allowing
it isn't
them to
a
take
good
place.
enough reason
Yeah.
to use the
Yeah.
force of the state to stop it. I don't like cunnilingus. I'm not going to use the force of the state
Well,
to prevent that from
it is-
happening.
It's fantastic. The ease with which someone can fill a room with laughter by just being rude and unpleasant.
I'm not
Okay, no,
I'm not being rude.
I
I'm
think
carrying
it's not
I'm
not particularly clever.
Peter, just hang on.
I'm carrying your
I-
argument to its logical
response to this.
extreme.
So
I'm
we
not
take
being
your
rude
point, we
for no
take both of your
reason.
points, as it were. Now, we've got another question, and we're going to continue the discussion based on the questions. The next question comes from Boren Izzet.
With the growing trend of internet hookups, sexting, and the prevalence of apps which combine smart devices with GPS tracking and offer the closest potential suitor for a quick, cheap, and purely hedonistic encounter, we have armed our generation with all the tools and platforms to normalise a culture of instant gratification. Is society so driven with personal pleasures that we're eroding the values of human relationships and reality-based interactions?
Dan, let's start with you.
I don't think the two people who met via a hookup app aren't having a hookup in reality. They're still having a human interaction, however it is that they were brought together. Any interaction, whatever its genesis, is as human as the humans involved in that interaction choose to be to each other. And there are a lot of really terrific relationships that post-internet and post-hookup apps and pre-internet and
Dan, can I
pre-hookup
just interrupt
apps.
you there? For the broader audience who may not know, can you explain what hookup apps are exactly?
Well, they're very popular with gay men because gay men are men and men are pigs. And also safer, generally. But what are hookup apps? Hookup apps are little things on your phone where you can use GPS and you can say, I'm here in this location at this time, and you can see who's nearby. And if somebody is of a like mind and would like to hook up with you, you can hook up. There's a lot, people have a sort of a moral panic about these apps. I think that's out of all proportion to what they actually do and the impact they actually have in a lot of people's lives. Usually the people who are fulminating about them or most concerned about them are people who haven't used them and don't know what actually goes on during those interactions. There are a lot of terrific, long-term, stable, loving relationships that got their start with a sleazy meeting. If your parents met because they were stoned out of their minds and had a hookup, they're not going to tell you. They're going to make up some bullshit story about the mutual friend that introduced them named Mary Jane. And that's really the only thing that, I know a lot of people who are in long-term, stable, loving relationships, even marriages now, who met via hookup apps. And we need these apps because we have said now that it is not okay to hit on people at work, not okay to walk up to somebody on the bus or the street and ask them for their phone number. We've defined these things, rightly so, to make the world safer for women, as sexual harassment. So we need these places that when you enter them, you were saying, you may approach me. When I'm in this space, whether it's virtual or a real space like a kind of a pickup bar, in these arenas, it is okay to hit on me. In every other arena, for the most part, we have rightly decided that it is not okay just to walk up to somebody at work and hit on them.
Peter Hitchens, I'll just bring you in here. You listen to that. I mean, do you see anything sort of wrong with this concept of hookup apps?
Oh, you're setting him up. You're setting him up.
I'm going to
Say
get on
no, just say
Grindr
no,
and see
just
who's
to
on right
surprise
now
us.
in this
Say no.
room.
Do you want me to say anything or not? It seems to me that when the intimacy is something which is profoundly private, and often if people are mistreated when they're intimate with other people, they are severely damaged. And the idea that sexual relations can be conducted in this casual and mechanical fashion is extremely cruel and crude and dismisses the concept of human love from a very important part of our relations. And I think that's a pity. He doesn't think it's a pity. He wants a crude and as far as I'm concerned, individualistic, unrestrained,
And the transcendent can
and
emerge
totally
from the
selfish
crude.
world. There is a definite difference between me and him. I'd just like to emphasize it. I think the society that...
I think
Society in which
Peter,
his ideas rule will be one you will very much regret having created.
I think that is becoming clearer, the difference.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make it absolutely
let me hear,
plain.
I think it's pretty clear.
Do you think it's possible that the women's liberation movement has gone too far away from the primary role of women to nurture and raise their children? The current role of mothering is being performed by paid caregivers, and my observations are showing me that there is a direct correlation between narcissism rising in the population and early separation of mother and child. The women who can do it all tend to have children with narcissistic traits. We ship our kids off to strangers to raise them and wonder why everyone is tired and depressed. We are allowing narcissists to rule our world, we're allowing the narcissists who currently rule our world to tell us how to raise our children.
Well, clearly we need to re-enslave women.
You are.
That's the solution.
Kimberly, you are fantastically brave. Be careful on your way home. The feminists will get you for that. But of course it's true. This extraordinary pressure to hand over young children to paid strangers while their actual mothers are
Wait,
are
why
trooped
do
off
the
to
women
work.
have
Yeah,
to do
here
it
we
if
go
it's
again.
such an important job?
You don't like...
Dan has done a fine job raising his child.
Shall I tell you a very simple reason why? It may not apply to you, but in a lot of cases, they're better at it. There, you see. Heresy.
Jermaine, let's hear from you.
But it's true.
What world
Anybody who's been involved in raising children knows that women are better at it.
Oh, my God. That's just crazy.
You can't, even say it, even though it's true.
What we've seen
The power
on studies of
fashion.
same-sex parents completely gives the lie to that statement, that children raised by same-sex couples are as happy, as healthy, as well-adjusted as children raised by opposite-sex couples. And included in those studies are children raised by gay male couples, as my son has been raised, and they do just as well, because what matters is love and nurturing and safety and protection and caring adults who are invested in you, not parents with particular genital sets.
Okay, so let's just go back and hear from Amelia. She's just
I'm just
jumped
going to
up
re-clarify. So I feel that compared to my parents, who challenge things so much, that most of all, like most of the people around me don't really challenge things that much. They don't challenge politics. They don't challenge a lot of ideals. They don't even challenge the idea that we live in this completely consumer society. So I wanted to know from the panel, do they think that my generation is less... It's challenging society less than their generation was?
Okay.
Well, I was in the 60s too. And
I think you were in fact a Trotskyist.
I was a revolutionary socialist, yes. And there are two theories about this. One was quite plausible, which is they put something in the water, because we all seem to go completely round the bend. The other is that, in fact, my generation, amazingly selfish, shouting loudly for what they wanted, got what they wanted, and have been contented ever since. And they got it on behalf of you. Whether you're happy with what they got is up to you, but I think that's the reason why it's different.
I remember all of those movements, the anti-war movement, the feminist movement, the women's liberation movement, those were sort of generated. They came about when people became supremely uncomfortable. They were forced up against a wall, and then they pushed back hard. And so don't look at sort of AIDS activists in the 80s and think, God, they were all so motivated. Why aren't we like that? They got so motivated, my generation of gay men at that time, because we were fucking dying. And we had a gun to our heads, and we had to come out and fight. It's not that everybody thought, hey, let's find something to fight about. Here's this AIDS thing. Let's fight about that. So just keep your eyes open, and when the moment arrives for your generation, if it arrives for your generation, it'll identify itself to you.
All revolutionaries claim to be fighting against the oppression of other people, when in fact they're fighting for their own personal advantage.
Okay, on that
I'm fighting for the...
So again.
Well, the gay rights movement is fighting for the advantage of being treated equally and being full and members of society. We are not fighting to take anything from anyone else.
Says you.
That is not some selfish goal that we had in mind. Like, it'll be really
no selfishness involved in it at all. Not a bit, no.
Well, no.
Okay,
nah.
I'm not trying to prevent you from living your life.
Of course I'm selfish, but I don't pretend not to be.
The question is from Claire King.
A few weeks ago...
Sorry, Claire, just wait for the microphone. There you go.
A few weeks ago, in this very auditorium, Julia Gillard explained her reluctance to embrace gay marriage as not a result of prejudice, but because it seemed abhorrent to her that women should be given from their fathers to their husbands. Regardless of gender, is marriage still relevant?
Dan Savage, start with you.
Well, marriage, I think, is hugely relevant, particularly to sexual minorities. You know, one of the things that marriage allows you to do is to choose for yourself who your immediate next of kin is. And that matters very much to people who may have homophobic relatives. If Terry and I should be so lucky, my husband Terry and I have been together for 20 years, if we should be so lucky as to live for 50 years, there is arguably a scenario under which one of us could be dying in the hospital and some fifth cousin, 10th removed, could blow in and say, I am the immediate next of kin, absent our ability and freedom to marry. Marriage is hugely relevant, and it's only as patriarchal an institution as you choose to make it. People who are queer who want to marry, gay people, lesbians who wish to marry, we're constantly told that we're seeking to redefine the institution of marriage. The truth is that straight people redefined the institution of marriage already. Marriage now is the legal union of two autonomous and equal individuals. Period. The end. Everything else is optional. Your marriage can be monogamous or not, you can have children or not, it can be for life or not, it can be religious or not. The wife can submit joyfully to the husband, as the Southern Baptists in the United States urge wives to do, or the husband can submit joyfully to the wife, as the female dominance fans urge husbands to do. Two people get to create their marriage for themselves. So for Julia Gilliard to hide behind a defunct and obsolete definition of marriage as some sort of sexist and patriarchal institution, which it once was and is no longer because straight people redefined it, I think is hypocritical and absurd and transparently horseshit.
Peter Hitchens.
Diane Atkinson is absolutely right about one thing, which is that heterosexual marriage has been redefined to the point where it is dying very rapidly in Western societies. It's become easier to get out of a marriage than it is to get out of a car leasing agreement. And as a result, many people are not getting married in the first place. I don't know what the statistics are here, but in my own country, marriage is dying out as a thing which people do. And increasingly, it has been sidelined. And that is it is the crucial issue of the modern Western world as to whether marriage will survive as a relationship at all. I think it should. They probably think it shouldn't, but we're moving towards a position where the only people who are interested in getting married are lesbian clergy women, and I look forward to the day. I look forward to the day when the female Archbishop of Canterbury is married in a lesbian marriage to the female Archbishop of York.
I think Hannah should speak to this, because what we see now is a real class division.
I'm a lesbian clergy
Because you're a lesbian
woman,
clergy woman. Because we see a real class difference on
Yes.
marriage. And when people have economic security to a certain extent, and they have a good education, those people tend to marry and stay married when they marry. I'm sure you don't support strong unions, living wage jobs, economic security, and economic justice, but nothing would go further to strengthen the institution of marriage than those kinds of securities and equalities.
So we're fast running out of time. Let's go to our next question, which is from Anna Christie.
Oh.
Anna Christie.
Oh, hi. It's a question for Peter. I'm fascinated by your conversion from revolutionary to authoritarian, and so I wanted to ask, how did this turnaround in your personal values occur, and was it an epiphany, or was it a series of doubts that eventually weighed on you and convinced you that you were wrong?
Well, hang on a minute. First of all, revolutionaries are tremendously authoritarian. It's revolutionaries who build gulags and set up the KGB. Revolutionaries are far more authoritarian than I am. But the fundamental reason why I no longer hold the infantile views which I held in my late teens and early 20s is precisely that I grew up. The thing which astonishes me is that so many of my generation did not grow up. And still, while they're drawing their pensions, they have revolutionary opinions and attend Rolling Stones concerts. What is wrong with these people?
How do you hope to bring about the world, to return the world to the state you would like to see it in without authoritarian means?
I gave that up long ago.
It would only
make me miserable. I know that you people have won. I just all that I seek to do,
which is why you have to be gay married now and use drugs now with the rest of us.
All that I seek to do is to tell the truth about you and what you want, while it's still allowed to do so, because you are so fantastically intolerant.
What do you mean when you say you people?
I mean the Cultural Revolution. I mean, the cultural and moral revolution which has swept the Western world since the collapse of Christianity.
I'm not intolerant.
Has changed our societies, as anybody who's lived through it knows, out of all recognition in the course of 50 years, and in my view, for the worse. He's part of it, she's part of it. For all I know, you're part of it, but I am not.
Okay, now, you're paranoid and you're projecting by saying we are intolerant.
You see, this is the intolerance. I am, because I hold an opinion different from his, he has become suddenly a qualified psychoanalyst who can tell me, that my opinions are not opinions which I am entitled to hold,
You're entitled to your opinions. You're not entitled
but are a
to your
pathology.
smears.
And this is the absolute seedbed of totalitarianism. When you start believing that the opinions of other people are a pathology, then you are in the beginning.
You're the one sitting there pathologizing other people's choices.
That leads to the secret
You are the
police
one
and the
sitting
gulag.
there saying
Because
that society is sick and damaged.
You cannot imagine
because
that
other
anybody
people are
else.
now as free as white men used to be.
You'll have the whole world to yourself, Sid. You cannot imagine that anybody else is entitled to hold a view different from yours without having some kind of personal defect. That's what's wrong with you.
Okay,
He's filibustering.
Yeah. So you get a chance now.
You are absolutely entitled to hold your opinions, but
That's not what you really think.
Well, hang on.
You're just saying that for public consumption.
Peter, let him finish, if you wouldn't mind.
You sit there pathologizing other people's choices. You sit there saying that other people being free to live their lives by their own light in some way oppresses you when it oppresses you in no way whatsoever. You are free not to get gay married. You are free not to use drugs. You are free not to drink. You are free to stay married to one person for the rest of your life. You are free to stay home and raise your wives' children so they always have a parent by their side. You are not free to sit there and say that other people being just as free as you are to live their lives and make their own choices in some way is damaging you personally, in some way destroying society. People are freer now, happier now. It's a less intolerant world than it used to be because people like me are now empowered to look at people like you and say you are full of shit.
It's the rally.
Okay.
It's a rally.
Hold on. We actually do need to hear.
While you do this, I can't talk. While you do that, I can't talk, and you know it. And that's to your shame. Because silencing opponents is a very wicked thing to want to do.
You've been a lot of things tonight, but you've not been silenced.
This is very personal. I'll reply to it. I am a very rich and fortunate person. And I'm coming towards the end of my life anyway. I can personally escape many of the consequences of this. But most people can't. They can't afford to. And I leave aside some of the things you mentioned, but a society in which the use of illegal drugs is widespread and unrestrained is one in which everybody is affected by the consequences, whatever they themselves do. It's like that ridiculous bumper sticker, don't like abortion, don't have one, to which my reply has always been, don't like murder, don't commit one. The fact is, if a society permits things to happen which damage the lives of many people who, as I've said earlier, as a result of the selfish unwillingness of those who do those things to recognize that they have
Forcing women to give birth against their will damages women.
We have those of us who oppose the Cultural Revolution and think that it's a mistake are entitled to say so for the moment.
You are entitled to say so.
For the moment.
You will always be entitled to say so.
Okay, we're nearly out of time, I'm sorry to say. I'm going to go